And for kids, everything is muktzeh. You can't put on a light because muktzeh. You can't do the, but we know and we learn more that not everything is muktzeh. There's a lot of things that are malach you're not allowed to do because it's you're transgressing Shabbos. It's prohibited to put on a light, etc. And then muktzeh is something that is separate. That there's certain things that you're not allowed to touch, or more precisely, you're not allowed to move. Now, really, the prohibition is you're not allowed to move it, but practically, Chacham say you're not allowed to even touch muktzeh because you might come to move it. Because generally, when you touch things, it moves. But there are certain things that are stationary that are, they don't move. Like let's say a rock, a big rock. A big rock is muktzeh. A car is muktzeh. You're allowed to touch a car if it's not going to move. So something that's sturdy, that's not going to move, you're actually allowed to touch. But generally speaking, you're not even allowed to touch muktzeh because if you touch it, it's going to move. But the prohibition is moving muktzeh. Now, what is the reason why we cannot move muktzeh? So there's general reasons of muktzeh, which we're going to discuss. The general reasons are, first reason that Alter Rebbe brings in Shulchan Aruch is because Chacham said that we see that it's prohibited that in the Nevi'im and the prophets is brought down that you're not allowed to, let's say, talk on Shabbos the same way you talk during the week. So, for example, that's a whole topic for itself. For example, you're not allowed to discuss on Shabbos what you're going to be doing after Shabbos. Let's say today's Shabbos, I cannot be saying tomorrow. My plan is I'm going to be mowing my lawn. I'm going to be picking the fruits in my backyard. I'm going to be doing. I'm not allowed to talk about these things. It's a broad topic, but just giving an example. So you're not allowed to talk on Shabbos the way you talk during the week. So if you're not allowed to talk on Shabbos the way you talk during the week, so it would be logical to say also that we should not be allowed to move things to actually the way that Alter Rebbe puts it, kal v'chem, all the more so that we shouldn't be moving things in Shabbos, we move it during the week. And the logic in that, okay, fine. And what is the logic behind it? But you can't move things. What? So the logic is because if you're allowed to move on Shabbos, where you move things during the week, then that means Shabbos could become like a weekday. Because what's going to happen is there's things you're not allowed to do on Shabbos that's prohibited. But then, let's say anything that's not a malacha, you're allowed to move. So let's say there's no such a thing of muktzeh, right? Okay, there's no muktzeh. So I can move this, I can move anything I want. So Shabbos won't be a day of rest. Shabbos will be a day of work. Okay, you're not doing work that's prohibited Torah, but you're not resting. Purpose of Shabbos is to rest. So whole Shabbos you'll be busy reorganizing your house, rearranging the furniture, this and the computer and this and all the things. You can do so much work on Shabbos. You won't be resting. Then there's other reasons. Other reason is because they said if you're allowed to move whatever you want, you might come to carry it out on Shabbos. Okay, that's one of the reasons. According to the logic, you shouldn't be allowed to move anything because you might come to carry it. But that's only one of the reasons. But another reason is because there are people who are unemployed, that they don't work all week. Now, all week they don't work, right? So now, when it comes Shabbos, what's the difference? Same thing. It's the same thing. Whole week they don't work, and Shabbos they don't work. So what's the difference? Right? So we want that on Shabbos it should be noticeable that they're resting. But a whole week they don't work. So what's the difference? They said, well, we have Muktzeh. Now it's going to be noticeable, something different. That all week they're moving things around. Shabbos they can't move this, you can't move that, you can't, yeah. So it'll be something that's noticeable that they're resting. Yeah.
You said something earlier about talking about your plans, can you think about your plans? I mean, it's best not to really get it breaking anything.
So really, it's a topic for itself, but I'll answer it, briefly. You're allowed to think about your plans. If it does not cause you distress, you're allowed to think about it. But it's not ideal for Shabbos.
And also, everybody always says like, oh, this Shabbos correct. Now let's say our plans. What's
I'm not sure where that comes from. I know that people do it. There must be a source for it. It doesn't make it it doesn't make it permitted, but I'm not sure exactly how to answer that question. It definitely doesn't make things permitted. But I'm not sure. I can't answer that. Okay, so that's generally what's the reason behind Muktzeh. Now, the way the pattern of the way Muktzeh works, generally speaking, in other words, there's a reason why Chacham said you can't, there's a prohibition of Muktzeh. Now, what is Muktzeh? What is not Muktzeh? There's different categories of Muktzeh. Some things are absolutely Muktzeh, some things are non-absolute Muktzeh. The way that system works, it goes generally the way it works is according to the level of according to how much it's removed from your mind, how much it's not usable in Shabbos, according to that will be the halacha of how much it's muktzeh, what degree of muktzeh it's going to be. So we're going to go through different categories over there. We start first with the category of what's called in English non-absolute muktzeh. So there's absolute muktzeh and there's non-absolute muktzeh. So the absolute muktzeh, you cannot move at all, meaning you cannot move it. Okay, let's go in order. I'm going a little too fast. It's going to get too confusing. Let's back up a little bit. As a general rule, anything that's muktzeh, whenever we say that this is muktzeh, this is muktzeh, look over here, this is muktzeh, all these things are muktzeh. This is muktzeh, this is muktzeh. My wallet is muktzeh. My keys are not muktzeh. Key to the car is muktzeh. Yeah, but regular keys are not muktzeh. That is muktzeh. Okay, different levels. We're going to discuss later different categories of muktzeh. Some are absolute, some are non-absolute. We'll get to that. But as a general rule, regarding if it's absolute or non-absolute muktzeh, the prohibition of muktzeh is moving muktzeh with your hands. We can move muktzeh with any other part of your body. So there's a general rule before we start.
For both categories?
Both categories, no difference. Any category of muktzeh, we're talking about moving it with your hands. Moving it with any other part of your body is not an issue. Now, the back of your hand also seems, for many years when I was teaching it, I would say from the wrist and down, that's it. You can't use any part of your hand. But it does seem from Dal Tereba actually that the back of the hand is okay. But those who are strict about it, but Dal Tereba, it seems that the back of your hand is okay. That's what it seems. But for sure, from the wrist and down, there's no issue. You can move muktzeh with any part of your body. And now, there are opinions that do say that if the reason why you're moving the muktzeh with any part of your body is to protect the muktzeh, then you're not allowed. Okay? So again, they're saying you can move muktzeh with any part from your wrist and down, you can move muktzeh regardless of what the purpose is, according to Dal Tereba. You will hear from other people, no, if you can't. If you're moving it to protect the muktzeh, you're not allowed even to use your body. But Dal Tereba holds that you could move muktzeh with any part of your body, even if any other part of your body besides your hand, even if the purpose is to protect the muktzeh, you could still move muktzeh as long as you're moving it with your body, your head, your foot, your elbow. There is no problem as long as you're not doing melacha. Right? We have to distinguish. We've said before, the children's languages, everything is muktzeh. You can't put on a light because it's muktzeh. It's not what it is. Muktzeh is not melacha. Muktzeh is moving. So you're allowed to move muktzeh with any part of your body, But you can't put on the light switch with your elbow because then you do malacha, you transgress, you're putting on the light. Yeah? Any question?
So candles that have burned out on the table, you're allowed to use those.
So right, so again, we're going to be discussing later the different types of muktzeh. But any muktzeh, regardless of what status it goes into, whether it's absolute or non-absolute muktzeh, but it's still muktzeh. Even if it's absolute muktzeh, you're allowed to use your body to move it. Okay? Now we're going to discuss first the non-absolute muktzeh. In Shulchan Aruch language, the non-absolute muktzeh is called Pili Shemlachis. So these are terms that it's a classical terms in halacha. These are terms you want to learn. Pili Shemlachtoi leheter. Pili, a vessel. Shemlachtoi. Malacha means work. Malachti means its usage. What it's made for is leheter, for permitted purpose. These are, so in the English language, in all the books that they talk about, they discuss English, they discuss all the examples of muktzeh. They use the term non-absolute muktzeh. But what is in this category? In this category, you have, I'm going to give you examples, real examples. A hammer, a tweezer, a scissor. You get the idea? These are, now, if you notice, all these examples I gave you so far it's a keli, as opposed to rocks. You go outside, find some pebbles in the street, find some broken, from construction, this twigs, branches, things. It's not a keli. Keli means a vessel, something that was made into something, was manufactured. It was made for a specific purpose. So these are all keli. Did I write keli shalachti leheter? Wait. Shalachti le'isr. That's right. Keli shalachti le'isr. A keli that its usage is for a prohibited purpose. Keli shalachti also has a restriction. We'll talk about it later. So keli shalachti le'isr. I'll give you other examples. A scissor, candles, not candles that were lit for Shabbos. Box of candles that was not used that Shabbos. The lighter, the candelabra, that was not used that Shabbos. It was used at Shabbos, different category. In the china closet, on the table, but it wasn't used. Matches, not used matches, a box of matches. It's a vessel that its designated function is for a prohibited purpose. It's not just random broken pieces that have no function. These are things that have a specific purpose for a prohibited use. So these are all, in English language, they called non-absolute muktzeh. But the real term is keli. Something interesting. Tefillin, a pair of tefillin is keli shalachti. It sounds funny, right? Okay, tefillin. Because why is it keli shalachti? Because what is the purpose of tefillin? To do a mitzvah, right? Is a man allowed to put on tefillin on Shabbos to do the mitzvah of tefillin? No, you're not allowed. Because we have to tell you that there's no mitzvah to put on tefillin on Shabbos. And if a man puts on tefillin on Shabbos, for the purpose of the mitzvah, he's transgressing. Not transgressing Shabbos, he's transgressing a commandment because you're adding on to the mitzvahs. There's no mitzvah, and you're doing it as a mitzvah, you're not allowed to. So on Shabbos, the tefillin, what it's made for, which is for the mitzvah, is prohibited. You're prohibited to put it on for the purpose of doing the mitzvah. Okay, other things are just same idea: flashlight, a computer, thermometer, an umbrella. An umbrella. You want to use umbrella on Shabbos? Even if there's an air? No. That a pen, a pencil, chalk, crayons, markers. Iron.
What?
Iron.
Oh, iron.
Basically, all the all these things that you can't use on Shabbos that you're not, because it's malacha. You can't iron shirts because you're doing a malacha. Besides using electricity, also you're doing a malacha. So the ironing board, it's a board, it's a table, but it's an ironing board meant for ironing. Can't should not listen. Stapler, eraser, rolling pin, a rolling pin. Open up the closet and get the pots and pans, and you have a rolling pin there. You get it, you want to move the rolling pin because there's something, you want to get something. The rolling pin is Kiddush Shabbat listen. It's not an absolute muktzeh. We're still going to discuss what's the halacha. An empty pot. Because a pot is, what is a pot used for? For cooking. You want to cook a Shabbos? It's an empty pot. It's Kiddush Shabbat listen. An empty pot, not with food. With food, it's the status of food because it's nullified to the food. Other examples. Okay, let's have a whole bunch of examples. A lot of them are the same thing repeating itself, different things. A grater, a chopper, a grinder, a washing machine, a dryer. You can't move your why should you move your washing machine anyways? Yeah, but if the door of the dryer is open, closing the door, well, there's an issue with the light going on, well, fine. But moving the door of the dryer is Kiddush Shabbat listen. So discuss what's We're going to discuss what's the halacha. But first, let's get the category straight.
The afikomen in the dryer.
Okay, we're gonna discuss it. So we're gonna discuss the details of Kiddush Shabbat listen.
Open it with the back, right?
Yeah. A paintbrush, a shoe brush. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna discuss.
What happens when it's like, okay, I guess this is like a rare situation, but when like there's a mitzvah, like you need something for a mitzvah, like let's say the only grape juice in the house, for example, has been hidden in the dryer.
Yeah, we're gonna discuss the halacha. I'm giving you the examples first. You should have a broad picture of what we're discussing. Then we'll discuss the halacha, you'll be able to start connecting it to what's happening. A sewing needle, a knitting needle, a car, we already said, a car is a Kiddush Melissa. Yeah. Actually, the story wasn't on Shabbos. I heard the story, I never verified it. They say once, did ever had to go to the oil, or did ever have to go strong to the oil, did ever go to, unless maybe I had to go home. And the car was blocked. I don't know how this happened, but years ago this happened, it was blocked, there was another car in the way. And we couldn't get the driver, whatever, and they never had to go. A whole bunch of them came together, they picked up the car and they moved it. Wasn't Shabbos. Car keys, blow dryer, you left the blow dryer in your bed. It's okay, so not listen. When it's good, you'll be able to go to sleep. We can discuss it. Okay. Paintbrush, pots, okay. Now, what is the halacha for Kiddush Shabbat listen? What is the halacha? So, you're actually allowed to move it. Yeah, so you're allowed to move it for two reasons. Let's say that the roof light, these are also classical terms in halacha that you want to write down, memorize. Let's say the roof light, let's say the you're allowed to move it for the purpose of its body, because you want to use it in a permitted way, obviously. Right? You can use a blow dry in a permitted way, technically. So supports your safety, the city, you want to daven. Let's say that you need a space. So if you need the space, you're allowed to move it. So it makes it very easy. Now, there are opinions who say that even though we're allowed for this purpose, but if you have something else that, let's say, you want to move the blow dryer because you want to use it for something, you want to prop up the safer. But if you use something else to hold up the safer, don't move the blow dryer. Alter Rebbe doesn't distinguish. Alter Rebbe says you're allowed to move it for the purpose you want to use it in a permitted way, or you want the space. Now, which means let's discuss the car. Okay, So let's say you have to get something from your car. And the car light is not going to go on. Let's say that it's disconnected, light is not going on. So you actually got to open up your car door to get the item that's in your car. But the English Mishnah says, and Mishnah Fashion says, you shouldn't do it in public, in the private place, not in the public place. In the public place, the private place, not a bunch of people there. He says, now there's a lot of ifs over there, and the light is not going to go on. Then you could open up the door. Open up the door, light goes on in your car. Let's say the light is not going to go on. What do you think? The light in your car.
Yeah, but doesn't it always turn on, you open the door?
You're right. You could switch it off. You could, yeah, this is the main switch. You could switch it off.
Oh.
Yeah, let's say, well, why would it? Usually, you're right. But usually it's going to be on. And you plan it before Shabbos to open it. It's not usual, but it could be. You know.
Literally, somebody's driving and they open, like, and they turn the car on. Like, somebody's not Jewish, like, turns their car, like, unlocks their car and turns it on. They let it open the door in the house. Okay, that's what
It disconnects the light.
like the light's already on because the non-Jew opened it for you and made it on turn on anyway. Hey, you're not gonna do it, you have to grab something.
So I'm saying,
So you do
if
that.
you need to get something from your car, let's say, and the light won't turn on, and it's not in public, you're actually allowed to open the door and get what you need. Why? Because it's kiddush this you can move, well, for its space. You need the space. Which space do you
I'm
need?
saying, like, you forget something in your car. And you
So-
want to
so-
open it, you build the light to turn on,
You can't.
but
You
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 get
could
the
ask
non.
him, yes, you could, you actually could ask him to open up the door, yes.
In this situation, like, then also the same with the car, like they're able to do it, the car keys also is fine. Or like, kids on the car, the car keys.
You can move your car keys also, because you're opening it, opening the car door, because you need something that's in other words, it's not, as long as it's not for the purpose to protect the muktzeh, it's permitted.
This is only for like, all the car keys are like electronics, you only be able to use like the regular stuff.
Exactly, right. Now, why is it permitted? We said because you need the space. What space do you need?
Oh, that's because you need a big block.
Actually, you need the space of the, you can't, your hand can't go through the glass. So you need that space to be moved out of the way, so your hand can go in the car. So you're moving it for the space.
Oh.
That's why you're allowed. The dryer door. The dry door is left open, it's in the way. Now, you need the same opening the dry door. If the light goes on, you have issue, but if the light is not gonna go on, and you have stuff dry before Shabbos, the light is not gonna go on, usually it does. You're allowed to open it, because you need to get something, you need to get your hand through, so you need a space at the door, the glass. Yeah. And the same things with everything else. Basically,
There's a lot of fold laundry.
Huh? with this.
Like, aren't you not allowed to fold laundry or separate?
No,
They
this
do,
goes
like,
like folding laundry, you have something in the dry that you need for Shabbos. But usually the light goes on, so it's an issue,
Are they old, so you know?
no?
Are they old, they don't have that.
What,
The dryer and the door, they don't have that.
no lights?
No.
Wow, lucky you, okay, good, so you could yeah, you could take that stuff on Shabbos. Now, but here's the thing, you can open the door, because if you got something, you wanna get something out, and after you take what you need, could you close the door? No.
No, you don't need the space.
Right, but if the door is in the middle of the way, someone's gonna knock their head into it, if it's in a hallway, depending where it is, like in my house, it's in a hallway. So if the dry door is open, you knock into it. So depending where it is, if it's not in the way, then you can't close it, so you could open it, but you can't close it. Because what's the purpose?
Use your hand. And with these two things, you can use your hand.
Yes, I said before, any discussion here about muktzeh, you could, you can't, you could, you can't, it's always about using your hands. Because you could always use any part of your body when it comes to muktzeh. As long as you're not doing malach, you're not putting on any lights or anything, there's no issue. So let's say, for example, you have a hammer sitting outside in the rain and it's gonna get damaged. So you wanna, in a place where there's 8 of it, it's enclosed. So you wanna bring the hammer inside, so it shouldn't be damaged. So you want to bring the hammer inside the house?
Well, if
Yes.
people would say no, if you protect them and stuff.
It's only permitted with Tzedek Gufa if you need the Muktzeh or you need the space. But if it's let's say this is Muktzeh,
Why would you need it? On top?
You're good, he's saying to protect.
you want to bring the hammer inside because you don't want to get damage from the rain. So let's say the Gufa Muktzeh, it's for space Muktzeh. But if it's let's say the Atzmei for the purpose of the Muktzeh itself, then it's going to be. But there's something you could do. Now, to them says there's something you could do. You could decide that you're going to use the hammer for a permitted purpose. Okay, so maybe a little funny, like what are you going to use it for? Maybe this example you might say is not so practical, but you could apply to other situations. But what way are you allowed to bring the hammer to the house? If you decide that you're going to use the hammer because you have a large coconut that you want to crack open. So you're going to use the hammer to crack open a coconut.
I'd find a use for it, you're saying?
Exactly. So now Tanaka says you could actually find a use for it. In other words, your real purpose is protect the hammer, but I'm not allowed. All right. Okay, so I'm going to crack open a coconut.
You don't want to do that on top?
Why not?
I'm not making it back.
Make the vessel of the coconut?
Yeah. don't
It's
you
a
like drink
food.
Out of it,
It's a food item.
I don't feel like drink out of coconut. Got the cup.
On Shulchan Aruch, they actually use the expression to crack open nuts. You want to use the hammer to crack nuts. Now, Al Tareb is strict that we don't eat nuts in Shabbos. Okay, but we're discussing, not saying you should eat crack nuts. We're discussing halachically, you're allowed to take in the hammer if you decide to crack nuts. I'm not suggesting that on a practical level necessarily. Al Tareb is strict about eating nuts in Shabbos. So, but it could be something else. It could be use it for a different purpose. Yeah. Any questions? That's basically the first category of Muktzeh, the lowest category, which is non-absolute Muktzeh. I'll give you examples of non-Muktzeh. A blech. What status is a blech? A blech in Shabbos. So you forgot to put on a blech in Shabbos.
The hectare
What?
one.
Danish Lachtim a hectare. Right. So in the category, Danish Lachtim a hectare. This is a very restriction. Okay. Okay. Danish Lachtim a hectare. What's examples of Danish Lachtim a hectare? Cutlery. A chair. A table. Danish Lachtim a hectare. Are you allowed to move in on Shabbos? Sure. Any restrictions to Kiddush Machna? Yes, there's one restriction. If you're moving it without a purpose, purposeless. If it's purposeless, you're not allowed. You can't just move it without purpose. So we just moving it like this. No purpose. Why am I doing it? No purpose, you're not allowed. Now, there can be a situation where person is doing it, is fidgeting with cutlery by the table, and that helps him relax. Someone to say that's different, that there is a purpose. We're discussing, generally speaking, saying that may be permitted. It's not so simple, but generally speaking, moving cutlery without a purpose, without any purpose at all, which is not usual, is not allowed. So it has to be some purpose.
Can I do that at like, let's say I get to a meal and like the cutlery is kind of like disorganized, and I'll like set my plate nicely. That's
Purpose, you want it to look nice. That's a purpose.
Okay.
That's a purpose. I mean, but there's a purpose. Usually that's what it is. Now, examples. Now, this restriction that has to be a purpose does not apply to svarim and food. Svarim and food, you can move without a purpose. A blech, going back to blech, what's the status of a blech? Is a blech muktzeh? A blech is keli shemalach de heter. It's a keli. Magnets is keli shemalach heter. A paper clip. You can hold papers, divided for Shabbos, you can hold together. Yeah, it's not muktzeh, it's a keli shemalach de heter. Corkscrew. I use a corkscrew on Shabbos, open up a bottle of wine. Yeah, sure. Yeah, an egg slicer, you're allowed to use
A what?
an egg slicer, a cheese slicer, these are all things you're allowed to use. Peeler. Okay. There's another interesting way you're allowed to move a kiddush malach in. So let's say the hammer, like any example, I'm just using hammer. Hammer is in the rain, it's going to be damaged. And so one way is you decide you're going to use it in a permitted way. Another way is they could put heter on top of it. You could put something that's not muktzeh, like the food on top of the hammer. In other words, if it's going to be a big loss. Now, if it ever says if it's going to be a big loss, so then you could put something that's permitted on top of it and carry it together. So then you pick up the muktzeh, the kiddush malach with the permitted item that's on top of it. Which is an exception. It doesn't work by regular muktzeh. There's no such a thing as picking up, holding real muktzeh by putting something that's permitted on top of it and actually holding the muktzeh. But because it's non-absolute muktzeh, you're allowed to pick up the actual muktzeh, the hammer, with a piece of bread on top of it. And then it's only permitted if it's a big loss. So what's called a big loss? Big loss is relative to the person. It's not whether it's going to be a big loss for that in relation to that person. Then we're allowed to do that.
Is this the same category of like, let's say the pen mix up, or let's say like it's in a bag, like it's one. You but like you move the bag, like the bag's on top of the pen.
Yeah, I guess on top of the penny.
Well, like the pens are inside the bag. Is it the same category? No.
It's very different. Because we're discussing when you're picking up the pen or the hammer and there's permitted item on top of it. Here, the pen is inside a bag. You're lifting up a bag that is actually permitted, but has something permitted on top of it, inside of it. We're going to discuss it. There's a lot of details involved with that. We're going to get to that. Now, the next category is absolute muktzeh. There's different types of absolute muktzeh. So, one example of absolute muktzeh is, so we can erase this. Within absolute muktzeh, there's different categories of absolute muktzeh. The same halacha, but different descriptions, different types. So we're going to discuss now the type of muktzeh machmas v'ufay. So here actually it's called muktzeh. You notice that kiddush malach does not have the title of muktzeh. Kiddush malach we don't call muktzeh because it's not absolute muktzeh. Here it's called muktzeh. Muktzeh machmas v'ufay. It's muktzeh machmas because of v'ufay, its body. It's muktzeh because of its body, because of the way it is. What are examples of muktzeh machmas v'ufay? Money. Money, a wallet. Wallet with money is absolute muktzeh. We mentioned before, stones, pebbles, it's not a keli, it's not a vessel. Just random stones, pebbles, twigs, branches, it has no function. People could decide to use for different things, but the way it's now, it has no function, it's not a keli. So these become absolute muktzeh. I mentioned before that the way muktzeh works, according to how much it's useful for Shabbos or actually not useful, that's how much muktzeh, that's how strict it's going to be. So the more useless it is, the more muktzeh it is. So whereas a stapler that has a function is not absolute muktzeh, but stones, pebbles, branches, a construction material is not a keli. It's not a keli. It has no use. It's never made to be used for anything, and it has no function, so it becomes absolute muktzeh. Yeah.
It's also like children playing outside. Like they're always like busy stuff.
Okay, so it's a separate discussion. We're going to discuss how do we deal with children, what do we tell them, what don't we tell them? Okay, so we'll discuss that separately.
They're playing with it for a game and picking up all the pebbles in the area, right? Like if it looks for them,
It is muktzeh. It's muktzeh.
but for them, it has a
depend-
purpose of fun.
Oh, you want to say for them there's a purpose.
Yeah.
If they designate it before Shabbos, then it won't be. It's not so simple. It really, no, it really boils down to their age. What age do you tell them not to? It's a discussion for itself. Educating them. Other example of muktzeh machmas gufay. You said all types of construction material. People don't think about it. People are very, in the minds of most people, a pen is muktzeh, a stapler. But you have construction material or pieces of plywood, a 2x4 sitting around, they don't think twice. It's muktzeh, why is it muktzeh? It's not a pen, but it's actually more muktzeh than a pen. A pen is non-absolute muktzeh. Construction material sitting around is absolute muktzeh. Raw foods that are inedible. Example, raw potatoes, raw beets, raw meat. It's not edible. It's absolute muktzeh. Could you cook in Shabbos? Obviously not. So it has no function. You can't do anything with it.
Wait, you confused me. Like
Really?
the pen thing.
What?
Like the pen, I thought you had to move like this. And I thought you had to, the pen you could move,
The pen is non-absolute muktzeh.
you could move.
Now, any muktzeh, regardless of it's absolute or non-absolute, you can always move with any part of your body other than your hand. From your wrist and down, you could move, there's no restriction. So the whole discussion over here is using your hands. That's all it's about. It's only about this tiny part of your body. It's really, muktzeh is really not so complex. It's easy, because you can use most of your body to move your muktzeh. It's only the hand, any other part you can use. It's not a big deal, right?
But so what do I do with the pen? Sorry.
What about a
I
pen?
see the pen on the couch. I shouldn't move it with my hand.
What's the problem? Why don't you leave it? Okay, so let's analyze it. Why you want to move the pen? Why can you leave the pen on the couch?
Benefit the pen. Cause I don't like it there.
Oh, so here's a very important thing.
So I want the face.
No, this is a very good example of it. There's a pen on the couch. Now, why do you want to move it? Most people want to move it on Shabbos because it doesn't look Shabbos. They got a pen on the couch. So you want to move it. Are they allowed to move it?
Yes.
The answer is no. When are you allowed to move a pen? If you want to use it in a permitted way, or if you need the space. Do you need the space?
Yeah.
No, you don't need the space. It doesn't look the pen. We're discussing where it doesn't take up the space. It's a very tiny space. Discussing where it just doesn't look Shabbos. It doesn't look, you don't like the way it looks.
Okay, then I.
So a lot of people think it doesn't look Shabbos. They want to move it. No. If you want to be Shabbos, you don't move it because you're not allowed to move it. That's Shabbos. It doesn't look Shabbos. It doesn't look Shabbos. So what? Obviously, before Shabbos, you shouldn't be there. But you're not allowed to move it just because it doesn't look Shabbos. Because there's no purpose. If you need the space, let's say, usually it's not the case. It doesn't take up that much space. If you need the space, then you could. But just because it doesn't look Shabbos, no, you're not allowed to move it.
You sit next to it and then like, they move, they push it, like it moves. Like that's it.
So so the question is, you're gonna sit down next to it and the pen is going to move. So what's the issue? Are you allowed to move muktzeh with your body? Yes. You're allowed to move muktzeh with any part of your body other than your hand. There's no problem.
So I will move it. Okay.
Also for construction, there's like three construction codes, they're the same.
No, construction material
Uh,
that you work with, it's not construction code, it's different. It's more like it's different. It's, I don't think it's gonna go in that category. No. Something that you build with, so it has no function in itself. Construction code is really like a key. It's there to show you where to go or not to go.
Yeah.
Continue with Shabbos. Yeah.
Actually, a question, but it might happen to me this Shabbos. I'm moving into an apartment and I ordered like a bed frame. It's supposed to come on Tuesday and I think it might come on Shabbos. It keeps getting delayed. I mean, it might come after Shabbos, but it comes on Shabbos. Like, am I able to move it? Cause
Yeah.
it's just like it's like a mail. It's like package. I can move it like even into my apartment because it's in a
Know where it's
building.
coming from? Is it coming from far away?
Now, like originally, yeah, but like now it's coming from like the facilities somewhere in New York. But like it started in like North Carolina.
If it's coming from New York and Sham, then you go out of the tongue.
Yeah.
One second, the bed frame.
It's like in a box, like you have to assemble it. And like so now it's unassembled.
Oh, you have to put it together.
Yeah,
And you can't.
but also like,
Could be
is there
Muktzeh, but it's not, it has no function.
a worry if like it's in a building, so can I push it even like outside my door so like it would get stolen?
One second, we're gonna do time. Discussing if it's Muktzeh.
Okay, fine.
The bed frame, what is it?
Like the mattress goes on top of it.
Natural goes. Oh, yeah, I'm thinking about the bed, the headboards, right?
It's attached. It's the frame and the board, like are one
The
piece
frame of the bed itself.
and the board.
And you obviously cannot, right now, it has no function.
Yeah, right now it's just like wood.
It's
attached.
wood.
With like screws.
It's Muktzeh because you can't put it together in Shabbos. It's
Yeah.
like construction material.
Yeah,
It would be Muktzeh. Now, so it's absolute Muktzeh.
okay,
Now, the question is, what is it gonna get stolen?
yeah, it's like a package in a building.
With your hands?
But I can like push it over.
But you could, or you could tell a guy to.
Okay,
You have a guy that could do it. If it's good, it's cost money. It's a loss, right?
yeah,
So you can tell a guy to move it.
okay.
A loss, yeah.
And then is there a distinction like, cause like, there's like the front of the building where the package guy delivers it. So like, is there a distinction like putting it in front of my door or like into my apartment? Like, it's still like, I can move it, let's say like, I don't know, like, one part is still public, but it's still
How are you
like
moving it anyways?
front foot or something.
So if
or
you
for
foot,
guy.
you can move anywhere you want.
Okay, it doesn't matter.
There's no restriction, no.
Okay,
Foot, there's no problem.
okay. So either with not my hand or with my hand.
Right.
Okay, okay, thank you so much. Hopefully it comes back.
Okay.
Am I, is it to music on Shabbos, like on my
Are
phone?
you allowed to?
Was it to music like regular? I've been hearing this
On
thing
your
that,
phone?
yeah. Like,
Make a timer that it should go on in Shabbos?
no, sorry, this is for the Omer, like this regular day. So,
Oh,
I was like, no way I listened to.
you don't listen to music during Shir, if it's real music.
You can't listen, wait, say that. You can't listen
Do
to
not
live.
listen to music on Shir. Recorded music, you know.
Really? Some people say you can do a cappella.
Capella is not music, it's just sounds of humans.
Okay, because there's this thing going around where I, like, my entire life, I listen to a cappella during Kira, but then someone's like, oh, it's a myth. You can just, it's just live music, you can listen to any music on your phone, because phone music didn't even exist back then, so they didn't cost on
It's
it.
not correct, it's not correct. You're not allowed, recorded music is also correct. But if it's not actual music, it's like a capella, then there is a leniency. Some are strict that also.
They don't need it.
But then it's not music. It's not music. It sounds from movies that create beautiful sounds. But it's not.
Like, and use it in college.
Interesting. Okay, so people really should, like, this acapella these days sounds like, so they make the beats that it's like
I
actually.
know it sounds so good, but it's not real music. The point is, the original prohibition was live music, not recorded. Like you mentioned. So there is that concept does include someone in the background, but practically, halachically, what the codifiers say, hey. Explanation actually says, but listen, it's not a music, it's not music, don't listen to it. But if it's recorded and it's not even real music, then how far are we stretching? It sounds very good, it sounds very good, but it's not real music, and it's not even live, it's recorded.
Yeah.
So, see, there is, I don't want to look it up again, I think there are opinions that are strict about it. Are some strict opinions, but practically, logically, there is leeway, there is flexibility.
Okay,
Still,
I guess so.